This is the Holy Gospel according to St. John, the first chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The Gospel of the Lord. So a couple weeks ago, Terry Forish, our treasurer, said to me, you worry too much. And as most of you know, Terry is correct. I do worry too much about a whole bunch of things. But the specific thing that I was worried about was the lighting in the church. We are in the process of getting all of the lighting in the church, both inside and outside, replaced with LEDs. We've been able to take advantage of a Pepco rebate program that pays for most of it, so our contractor will be doing about $20,000 worth of work for which we only have to pay $2,000. This will be great for our electric bill. It will be great in reducing our carbon footprint, and it will mean that we hardly ever have to get up on ladders and change the lights in the sanctuary. But the lights in the sanctuary were actually the thing that I was concerned about. Bill Harrell and I had walked the entire property with the contractor, and she assured us that the new LEDs that will be placed in the sanctuary will be the appropriate color temperature and would be dimmable. But this was scheduled to happen 10 days before Christmas. And if it wasn't right, last night on Christmas Eve, everybody would have noticed. On the first time back in this building in 2 years for Christmas, if the lights in here had made it look like the inside of a warehouse and you couldn't dim them when we sang Silent Night, no good would have come of that. Now, as it turned out, Pepco, who can always be counted on for stuff like this, Pepco decided they needed another form filled out at the last minute. So the lighting change is now scheduled for this coming Thursday, which is really much less stressful on me. But in fact, if it's done right, and I'm sure that it will be, probably most people won't notice. After all, you probably wouldn't notice it during morning services like this because there's enough natural light in the sanctuary. Even if the lights were off, we would still have enough light to see by. And if you haven't been here at night, you may not have noticed that almost all of these outdoor bollards around the church, those bulbs burned out years ago. But if you weren't here at night, you didn't notice that, so you might not notice that they're going to get replaced. And unless you're looking carefully at the bills, you will not see the effect that this is all going to have on our electric costs or get a sense of how many tons of carbon we won't be putting into the atmosphere. It'll be easy not to notice the light. And that seems to be the theme with which John begins his story of Jesus. Jesus, the light, has come into the world, but people seemed not to notice. And perhaps that, too, was for a variety of reasons. Sometimes people don't notice the light of God because things seem, bright enough in their lives right now. Things are okay. I'm really not looking for God's help or God's presence. John seems to make the point early on that it often takes darkness to appreciate the presence of the light. The people who really lived in darkness, the darkness did not overcome the light, and they noticed. But a whole lot of other people were like, there's plenty of daylight around. Why should I be looking for the light of God? Sometimes people don't notice the light of God because they're focused on other things. After all, sometimes we just kind of take for granted that we have light that enables us to see what we're doing, and we really, really get focused on that. I'm focused on whatever it is I'm doing, and I'm not even thinking about the light that's around me. Sometimes that's the way it is with God also. I'm really focused on the things I'm doing, and I don't even notice that God is there in the midst. And sometimes people don't notice the light of God because they're not thinking about what the light is doing for the rest of the world. We have enough sunlight right now that we can see what we're doing inside the sanctuary, but sunlight also is making plants grow, even in the wintertime. It kills pathogens. It creates beauty. But if I'm just interested in what it's doing for me right now at this moment, I don't notice all those other things. So John begins his gospel by reminding us that the light of God really has come into the world in Jesus, even when we don't notice. The light of Jesus is making a difference in ways that we may not experience unless we actually pay attention. And the light of Jesus often can only be seen if we look for the light outside of our own personal wants and needs. So in this Christmas season, instead of simply thinking about angels and shepherds and stars up in the sky at night, think about the light that surrounds you each day. Not only the light you see, but the light of God, which is always present in you and around you. Take the opportunity to look for Jesus' presence in your daily life. Stop and think about how God is working in your life at moments that maybe you didn't think about before. And remember that sometimes the best way to experience the light of Jesus is to be open to the possibility that you yourself might be the conduit for God's light in the lives of others in the world around you.